You are the best friend of both the buyer and the buyer's agents and the seller. You want everyone to love everyone and respect everyone and come out holding hands. Everyone has the same goal. It's two humans trying to exchange a home. Help them do it.
Well, super excited for the podcast today. We have Katrina Barrett on. Welcome, Katrina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I've been very excited about this episode. Katrina, she's the top agent, the top producer in all of town with local luxury, Christie's real estate. And, we connected a while back, and Katrina, I've been more blown away by how responsive you are. And maybe I'll start there. I think it's pretty rare, as I've worked with different professionals, someone as successful as you're so responsive. Anytime I've reached out, like you're on top of it. What's your secret to be so proficient?
I sleep with my phone in my hand, and I probably neglect myself, my kids, my family. But there is a saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person, and I think it's pretty valid. It's tougher to get me by telephone, and it's never being rude. It's just I always have clients in the car or I'm in a showing, but usually I can text back really quickly. If you haven't heard from me, I am dead, sick, or didn't see your text, so try again. I am a really quick responder, despite my phone saying right now that I have 7,200 unread text messages. I actually don't believe that. I just tune out a lot of the group chats with girlfriends and such.
Yeah. How do you feel that's giving you an advantage? Like, what's the feedback from your clients as they're working with you? Because you're working with a lot of high-profile clients. How has that been beneficial for you, building those relationships and expanding those relationships and referrals over time?
I would say that people always work best with people who are like themselves. So I am a very busy person. I'm very analytical. I'm very straight to the point, and I feel like I'm very educated on a broad topic of subjects. And so for me, it would be very difficult to, for instance, work with a first-time home buyer. It would be very hard to relate. But I love someone who really wants to find a value or find an off market or find something very particular to fit a need. I'm reflecting on this myself. I would say any of the negative criticisms that I've received from listings have been that I'm not emotionally available enough to kind of hold someone's hand. And I would argue a little bit that possibly I am there to serve a purpose and a job and provide a really top-notch service. And friends and family and other people in their lives can serve as that emotional guide. But I am here to kind of do a job. So I'm putting up a wall a little bit. I think I used to give a whole lot of myself to trying to do a lot of the hand holding. And I actually don't think it's the best role. I think you're better to really present things without sugarcoating them. And if it's not what someone wants to hear, you're being honest. And right now, in a market that is not necessarily up for resale, we get a lot of clients who come to us who bought a house a year or two ago, and potentially the market's down 16%, and they want us to sell it for 10% more. And I'll typically say I'm up for the challenge, but you have to say, if Apple stock was valued at 100 and now it's at 80, who wants to pay 120? I mean, that's the equation that we're conquering in that. So we better find someone pretty emotional on the other side to really relate to the product and really want it. I do think sometimes when something had a rough run, like you'll always sell for more when you sell realistically or even underpriced. Competition breeds the highest outcome. So a lot of times if someone bought something that had been on the market a very long time and started too high, then we are able to sell it for more. So looking at those fact patterns can help as well. But yeah, don't need to be everyone's emotional steward. And we're working a ton more right now with developers such as yourself, and, kind of investors who might do 10 at a time. And that's been like just really, really nice, because then it's two really sophisticated parties analyzing a market together and coming up with the best strategies. And there's always another way to be like more creative, more ahead of the curve, do something differently that catches an eye and gets it done.
I love that. I think what's hard in business, and because for you, Katrina, I mean, you're running your own business too. I mean, you have a team. You have, as you mentioned, you set these boundaries with clients. It's really hard to figure out your lane. And I think you gave a great example. You said, look, working with a first time buyer is not going to be the best client for me, right? Because you need someone seasoned, you're seasoned. There's a lot you bring to the table from a value perspective, And so working with someone that has, call it realistic expectations, and you mentioned the emotional availability by conversing that early on, you're letting the client know that, hey, I'm here to work for you and, find you the best investment opportunity, or maybe it's emotionally driven. It's the best location for your family that and how long did it take you in your career to, I don't want to say have the gumption, but have the understanding that I have to set these boundaries? They're healthy boundaries. It's going to allow me to be more successful to serve you.
Believe it or not, I think it was this year and this January. I mean, we're really, really lucky to be basically an incoming call center at this point, which I think anyone in business is like so lucky to reach that point. And I really do try when I don't have a relationship with someone, I try and place them with, if they aren't a perfect fit for me, who might be a great fit within our company for them. But I really do, I try and take on as much as I can. And in doing that, I think, I have to be very realistic with myself. I am one person. And 2 years ago, I kind of stopped the ball. I pulled all of my listings and I tried to hire everyone for the role that they were best suited to do. So we needed PR. I hired internal PR from a specialist. We needed more marketing. We took a marketer in house. I needed more help with showings. We took the three best showing agents I could possibly find. I have a full time paperwork attorney. And now at this point, I have a role just called a quarterback who just assigns out work to each of us as it comes in all day. Because if we're out in the field doing showings and the paperwork attorney is drafting contracts, someone needs to be pinging photo galleries to agents who are asking, or floor plans or seller disclosures to buyers. So at this point, we are busy enough that if a request comes in, we like to see the response go out in 5 minutes. And I know that might seem wild, but that's the pace we keep up throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's, one thing I'll give you credit to, Katrina. You touched on this, just how important it is for you to be analytical and, the education side. I've been with you, and the width of knowledge you have from, market, crypto, you know, um, businesses that are moving into Phoenix, but even not even what is just happening locally, but nationally and worldwide. It's a lot of credit to you, because I think a lot of us, focus on the specialization of, what we do in our profession. And by understanding more of what's happening worldwide, it allows you to be, to your point, more valuable to the client and what they're looking for to build that relationship.
Yeah, I think a lot of realtors neglect seasonality and just geopolitical events too. So here's a really good example going on right now. January and up to about halfway through on February, we're really going strong. And then a week before the war started, all of a sudden it really slowed. And that always gives us, hey, what's happening?
Hmm.
And then the war started, rates went up by 1%. Cost of everything went up. I don't know about you, but I went to go fill
Yeah.
my tank, which is usually $65, and it was
Yeah.
120, and that
Right.
was pretty a pretty big jump in a very, very short amount of time. And I can only imagine how that is affecting those on fixed incomes and in situations where that, extra $60 matters so much more. So that was big. That was a big jump, and a 1% jump in interest rates might be the difference for someone of buying at a $4 million valuation versus a five. And
Hmm.
if they were able to do a five and now they can only afford a four, they're definitely going to wait until they can get that five instead. So it put a lot of buyers back on the bench. We had that at a crippling time when the stock market was also falling out of fear. Fear tends to be the highest rate when an event first happens. And then even if the event continues or gets worse, fear subsides over time. Additionally, here locally, we got 110-degree weather in the first week of
Yes, we
March.
did. I,
Part of me was like, pack it up. We're done for
yeah.
season. Summer has started early. I don't know about that Punxsutawney Phil. They must not have seen a shadow. We're done for the year. But then there's, just events happening in history. So, for instance, Washington adopted the 9.9%
Hmm.
state income tax for those who earn over $1 million. And on my schedule for the next 6 weeks in a row, we have kind of what we're calling first responders coming and moving or exploring the Phoenix market to take advantage of not having to pay that new extreme tax. If you made only $1 million and now you're at 10%, that was a big jump. That's a
Hmm.
substantial amount of your take home. And it is worth exploring for a lot of these families. So, um, but back to the point of that, if
Hmm.
you watch and look at which times of year are better for you, and then avoid the times of year that are not better for you by pulling down and just showing off market, you
Hmm.
could swing your listing in your favor by millions of dollars. We always say punch the gas when it's hot, brake when it's not. So when
Hmm.
it's not, if everyone's in sheer panic, don't do the price drop then. It's not the time.
Yeah.
Wait until it picks back up or it stabilizes. And if it's really bad, pull off. Pull off. Nothing says you have to sell next week. I mean, it
Hmm.
could take as few as 3 weeks for things to return. So just never panic. If you see a really down market, buy. Don't sell. And if you see a really up market, sell. Don't buy. Don't feed into either side. Fear and greed really drive a lot of people's investment strategies, and it's hard not to get off the bench when everyone else does, and vice versa.
So along those strategies, when you're consulting a client, maybe it's selling. Are there seasons in Phoenix that you feel are the most optimal when they should be listing their home? Like, we know that it gets very hot in the summer, so a lot of people probably aren't vacationing here. When do you find the best season to be where you and your team are extremely focused on,
If
driving
you
business?
are a $5 million and above listing, you have two seasons, which are defined as Labor Day through Thanksgiving. People tend not to like moving during the holidays.
Hmm.
And then second season, which is a longer season and it's hotter towards the second half, would be January through about May 15th. You see family homes trade very well from May to June, but then, kind of pack it up mid June through August. Last year was an interesting year. We usually do Labor Day launches, and we called all of our listings to get back up in early August because we just started seeing this huge tidal wave of buying happening out of nowhere. So every listing that we called to get up in August actually sold. Everyone that we kept the Labor Day launch, it took a little. Yeah.
It was tough. Last fall was tough. I mean, there was a lot of things. I think not just for you real estate. I would say, for us builders, contractors around the country, it was predominantly slow. Last quarter last year, it was just kind of a weird window. We've seen it pick up this year, but sometimes that happens. You just kind of go through these waves.
We picked up big at the beginning of this year and then just fell off again. And that's kind
Hmm.
of like 2 years in a row that that's happened.
Hmm.
The day after New Year's is wild. Like I would say the record amount of phone calls that I get is January 2nd every year. It's like everyone slept on it, prayed about it, woke up and was like, I'm buying this year and right now. And I'm going to get started right after my first workout.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really funny. It's like clockwork, but historically that has like really picked up throughout season, and it just hasn't the last 2 years. Like if you miss January and August of last year, you miss the whole market.
How difficult is it for you, Katrina, when you're meeting with a potential prospect, and a lot of prospects, they have their own feeling of what their home's worth, what the market's doing. A lot of people are very emotional about this. You already know, seasons and windows when you need to be listing in certain prices, and when you're far off base, how do you handle that conversation, knowing that You are in a competitive market. You're probably one of a few being interviewed. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, they're probably only interviewing you, Katrina, just because of the reputation and success you've had, and you're a true testament of what you produce. How do you handle those conversations when you're not on the same page as the client and you're off base from what they think it's worth?
I'll say oftentimes if a client has a very unique home, I will take it on even if I feel like it's a little high, because clients can sit on the same side of the table with you. If you go through 20 showings, it's price. It wasn't a problem getting the marketing, it's price.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually tend to be the second, third, or fourth lister on most homes. I find that first appointments, typically someone goes with whoever the highest price was, and they're really injuring themselves. And as much
Mm-hmm.
as you try and coach that, if someone tells you 15 and someone else tells you 10, they're going with the person who told you 15. Then when you get it back at 10, you're selling at 9. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Where if they went up 10 day one, they might have gotten 11 in a run up. I can't say enough. Competition breeds the highest price.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very valuable because days on market affect it. Being overpriced for the neighborhood, you're not going to get the eyeballs. Whereas if you could get it in a window, as you mentioned, competitive, now you're going to have a lot of people seeing it. They're going to feel be anxious to get that, and they're going to probably come in with a better offer.
It's my two least favorite things to hear are I want to sell, but I'm not in a hurry. My question would be, then you don't really want to sell. Or I want to sell, but I don't want to be on market. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
talk to me as to why. Why do you want to limit the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that could see your listing when I can bring you the 100 in my sphere? I actually did ask my phone the other day how many people on average I speak to a day, and it was 255.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I don't know how it knows that, but AI is pretty smart, so it's probably pretty accurate.
Well, knowing you, I believe it's very accurate. Maybe you speak to that when the power of networking. When do you feel that you got your first big break? I mean, it's anyone that to be the top producer. This is not something that it's not an overnight success. Doesn't matter who you know. Like there's actual work that goes behind the scenes. When did you feel that tipping point happen where you saw this really taking off?
This is going to sound maybe like a very arrogant answer. um, Anything I've ever really attempted in my life, I feel like I've moved to the top like immediately. So maybe that's just a positive mindset of like, I was a swimmer when I was growing up, and I moved to the top of that very quickly. And in school, I started off with dyslexia and not being able to read, and as soon as I conquered that, I moved to the top very quickly. And I've always been very competitive. When I was in high school, I started doing swim lessons and being a swim coach at a country club for the summer, and I noticed ways to do things better. So
Hmm.
by the next year, I was setting the lifeguard and the whole pool schedule. And I was booking Olympians to give the swim lessons where I was charging $60 an hour, so $1 a minute. I booked the Olympians for 120 an hour, and I took the same 60 I would have made, except I had 10 of them in the pool at once. So I just feel like I always like to try a new challenge or a new business, stand back and like figure out how do you multiply the business, how do you systemize the business, how do you repeat what is working and then do it better.
And is that what led to? I mean, you mentioned that you're always analyzing the business aspect, and that you had said that you internalize some of these roles. Like how did you build that team? Because anytime you're building a team, there's risk for you as owner, right? You mentioned that the market could be unforeseen. You have a war. You're dealing with interest rates, and there's people behind that. There's an emotional side to that.
I'll say this type of market where it's slow, there's a lot of inventory and there's kind of a lot of fear is the hardest because clients have an expectation up here. And if things are selling down here, it's very hard to keep someone happy. So this is a market where we didn't change, the market changed, and it's really explaining that to people so that they can understand it. Just continually hit people with stats and data and closings. Like that's really all you can do is educate. But this is a tricky one. But conversely, when your systems are in place and it is a little slower, tighten up your systems, because then you end up with something like COVID, which is an unforeseen event. And in COVID, I had a very recognizable car, and two times, not once, I drove to a listing appointment. And before I even left the listing, I had an offer in my inbox, and both times that same offer closed.
Wow. Just because they recognize your car?
They recognized my car. They knew I was holding a listing agreement. One
Mm.
sent me terms over in a text. The other one called their agent, had them draft an offer. And before I had even left, I received the call that we had the offer in our inbox. We went over it with the sellers and accepted.
It's amazing.
So for every really difficult market, there is an equal and reactive good market. So, we're in a great market for buyers right now. Like, what I would say to people is there's always a market for something. When it's
Hmm.
soft on the list side, it's always harder in our perspective. But when it's soft on the list side, it means it's a buyer's market, and it makes buyers happier. If we can find more inventory, find more opportunities, find more hurting people, and really take advantage of getting good deals.
With that, how have you changed? I'd imagine you have to modify your marketing strategy in a way, right? Because at times you're going to be advertising to the seller, at times to the buyer, to change
We
that.
literally change our marketing strategy about every quarter. We very quickly react, and what works and doesn't work is kind of wild. I think we were very early to the game on Instagram, and that was working really, really well for a while. And for instance, now I feel like it falls flat a little bit. People locally like to see the content a lot of like what's actually hitting, but you don't get as many out of towners just like reaching out thinking you're amazing because you're posting your content. But I'll give an example. Last year, whether you were priced amazingly or terribly, you weren't really moving. So we overlisted everything because that was kind of the first stall in the market. And it made people feel amazing when they could write an offer and see a big gap between list and acceptance.
Hmm.
This year, things are moving a little bit more. There's a lot of saturated inventory. This year, if you do not price on the money, you're sitting. You're not selling. It's like you sell right away or not at all. So right now, we're coming out of the gates what we think is strong, and if it hasn't moved in 15 days, we're moving it. That is very new for us. Like, that's wild. If you go back to 2022, if we hadn't sold in 1 week, we did something wrong. So all markets are changing all the time. Right now, we just have to be really sure that we have really good follow-up marketing. So it's like you have a launch, then you hit them with more reels, then you hit them with a YouTube short, then you've got TV commercial. I mean, it's just like, how do you keep
Yeah.
overexposing the same listing to make sure that you get, participants? I think one of the things that our team really does best too, so we recognize if there's an out of town buyer who's with maybe a less sophisticated realtor and they kind of need help, like they're going to lose this client to a bigger realtor. And instead of competing with them, we try and take them to all of our inventory because we have a lot and we hold their hand to get them to contract. And that creates not only trust with that realtor, but a realtor who's going to repeat come to you the next time they have a big client.
It's amazing. I think pricing's interesting to me because, as a builder, a lot of times people call me and be like, "Hey, Brad, what's your square foot price?" And as you know, Katrina, I mean, there's so many variables in construction. It's a hillside, flat lot. What are the type of finishes? For you, even from your perspective, as you're sitting down with the client, there's a lot of variables, right? What are the comps? Recent sales in the area. A lot of it could be neighborhood, it could be area, it could be subdivision. Um, what have you found good strategies to make sure you're coming in at a good price? Because something may have sold down the street for a certain square foot, but the style of home, year of construction, it could be new build, could be older. How does all this information play a role as you're strategizing with the client?
You have to know your comps. You have to know that when you walked in that home up the street, they had an upstairs bedroom only and all the kids' rooms were downstairs, or that their basement was a 7 foot tall ceiling. You have to walk them, breathe them, know them. I feel like a lot of people are good at looking at Zillow, but they actually haven't sold or walked homes. Like, the best thing you could do if you're a younger agent and you have a first big break with a big client, tack on to a big realtor's day for the day. Like, we call that a drive along. We let someone from our office kind of drive along for the day. But when I go in and I price a home, I sold every home on the street. Like I know where that's going to fall. And I kind of feel like that's why you can't be a part-time realtor. Markets move so fast. Like you lose. I go on vacation for 4 days and I feel like I lost pulse. Like what's going on? And I am obsessive. I look at every
Yeah.
new launch every morning, every closing, every week. But truly, like to just analyze comps is not enough. You have to live them because homes are unique, both in their location, their finishes, their condition. You don't know a comp until you've walked it. So, I mean, the greatest value any big agent can bring you is actually having been in all the homes you're comparing the subject home to. That brings up another thing. You cannot be an expert of all of Arizona. It is
Yeah.
impossible. You
Yeah.
have to hone in on your areas. Like I definitely realize Arcadia PV, I know like the back of my hand. I try really hard in Silverleaf to stay up on everything. Outside of those three areas, I want to help someone and I try and help someone. And I still think our marketing team's probably better, but I don't know the comps like I do in those three areas.
Yeah, I think that's valuable insight because, I think a lot of us try to be anything and everything in a way. And for you, Katrina, I think anyone, you see an opportunity, it could be a great, uh, product you're representing. But if it's in the East Valley or maybe, Desert Mountain or somewhere that's tremendously far, it could have impact to your point, just understanding that market and the clientele and who you're advertising. And it makes it hard. I think a lot, there's value in no, is where I'm getting at. I know as
Yeah,
a builder, it's easy for me to take every inquiry that comes in and be like, yeah, Brad, I want you to build in Peoria or Queen Creek or Desert Mountain. And, you find yourself all over and you're not really servicing the client as you should.
100%. When I was younger, I just said yes to everything, which is actually something I see missed by our younger agents. I'm kind of like, you decline that. You have one listing and no buyers. Like, why would you decline that? Say yes to everything. But I took that to a little bit of an extreme. When I was younger, I would like start the day in Tucson, drive to Paradise Valley, then drive to Fountain Hills, and then drive to Pine Top and end in Flagstaff and repeat it again the next day, like literally morning
Wild.
till night. And now I'm still driving morning till night, but I can hit 30 times more homes by having
Hmm.
them be close together. So just this morning, it was kind of funny. I had two different out of towners, one East Coast, one West Coast, and we each hit like a lot of overlapping homes and the impressions of those and what buyers are looking for is really different. But I mean, both tours, we hit about 15 homes in maybe 2.5 hours. And I thought it was very efficient. Like I
Amazing.
think they really got their pulse of what's happening here and what's a deal and what's not a deal. And hey, that one might not be a deal, but it has every single checkbox that I'm looking for, and I don't want to remodel.
What do you feel buyers are looking for?
Buyers like quality right now. There's a big return to quality. There's so many spec builds out there
Hmm.
that skimped on landscaping, maximize price per foot, and are full of
Hmm.
drywall. And when you go to 10 of those and then show one Candelaria with organic modern finishes and Berghoff landscaping, that's the one they're
Hmm.
choosing, even if they're paying up for it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, because I think, at least my experience has been, from the builder side, you see, others. I don't want to see say cheap, but you see them skimping right on some of the finishes and design, for the price. But clients see that because clients are pretty self-aware to come in and be like, hey, if I buy this house, maybe the location's great, the property's great, the plenty of acreage or whatever, but they know they're going to have to go in and put more work into it, either fix some of the things that are there or, to your point, add landscape. And a lot of buyers at this point that are looking for a finished product, they want something that's turnkey.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. From a quality perspective, how do you feel your construction knowledge has increased over time? Just understanding quality, the products that are being installed. We talked about your understanding and knowledge in, the market and economy and, all these, world politics that are happening. How about the construction and interior design and architecture side?
I would say I'm actually a pro at finishes. So I'm better at the designer side than the builder side. But my favorite thing to do is when a builder is hiring me, have them walk the first client and listen to everything they say, because you
Mm.
absorb so much about the differentials in building quality and materials and style and how they put it together. It's just impossible to get that from a designer or another realtor, and it's so valuable in selling the client. If you are a steel beam construction and you plastered in your lights and you have, floating baseboards with a steel seam, that's a very different house, and the buyer
Hmm.
needs to know about it. And
Yeah.
it's so nice to hear it from the builder.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, because there's going to be details that probably you just don't pick up on unless you're being advised. But on the flip side, you mentioned early in our conversation you work with a lot of developers. I know you do that. You represent some of the top real estate that's being produced and under construction in town when it's ready to go list. How often are the developers, builders involving you in that design, in what they plan on doing for insight and expertise that you have?
I would say at this point on almost all the specs that I'm involved in, and I don't, I by involved in that I am the lister of. I
Hmm.
I don't get involved. I want to be a neutral fiduciary. I don't take funds for referring builders or anything
Hmm.
of that nature. I really want to have clear intentions that my intention is there to represent the sale as much as I
One of the
can.
rare ones, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I can say with an honest face, I have not taken a dollar, and I am offered it 24/7. Someone called me the other day saying, like, I'll give you 10% if you get me a build. And that was like
Oh my
such a red
God.
flag. I'm like, never giving that guy a build, but but also I would just never take it. You don't
Yeah.
want the liability of someone else's
Right.
work. Like, you
Right.
wouldn't want to take on my paperwork
Right.
liability. I don't
Right.
want to take on the liability that you get black mold in a shower.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
something that I am versed in or can control if you use the right shower pan or not. I don't know.
Hmm.
But no, we are incredibly involved at this point. We're lucky to have over 70 specs in the works that are over $10 million over the next 15 months or so coming out, which is
It's
a
amazing.
crazy, crazy amount of inventory. And almost every single one, we sat in a build meeting where we identified the lot, walked the lot, and came up with the most important things to be in that home. Then from there, kind of worked with the designers on the design palette. And I think the most important meeting that any realtor is in is the floor plan meeting. Once you get
Hmm.
that final floor plan and elevation, the realtor can be a big help in pointing out things that people just missed by being so close to the project. If you're at every meeting, it's funny how you miss things. It's almost like if you skip a meeting as a realtor and you come back in, you're like, oh my God, you forgot a pool bath. Like, how did you forget that?
Yeah.
Because everyone else is so involved in the details, they just didn't look at the little check boxes. So, um, yeah, I love being a part of those. I don't consider myself like great at design or anything else, but I do know buyer feedback live from the field every day, and it changes a lot. Like, all of a sudden gray is certainly out, white is going
Hmm.
out. Now we like closed spaces. It's like everything we
I
did in
know.
2020 is now out the
It's
window
changing.
already. It's unbelievable. Arches are back. We like crazy
Right.
shapes again. I mean, if a sunken living room comes back in, just call it
It
off.
is.
I
No,
don't
it's happening. It's happening. Sunken
I
living
know.
room.
I don't know. I mean, Saltillo is way back in, which is
Yeah.
wild. But I love anything kind of like more organic in form.
Hmm.
So anytime there's a porcelain replacement of something, I automatically dislike it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny bringing the sunken living rooms because you and I mean, it wasn't that long ago you're doing a renovation and filling them all in, and now they're coming back into the design.
I can't tell you how many Tuscan turds we told to paint white, and
I
now
know.
they're Venetian plaster. We would like to scrape it back off. So
Yeah.
it's so bad. I mean, wild. I do
It's,
love the Roman clay trend. I hope that stays
hmm.
for a bit. I think it's
Yeah.
fun to have color and texture really back
Hmm.
on walls, and all the carpenters are back in biz overnight because now wooding everything is back in vogue.
It's back to do a lot of trim, which is, fun. What for you over your career, what are, I don't want to say the weirdest requests, but maybe some of the most unusual requests, for buyers looking to come into this market?
Unusual requests. I always find it funny when I mean, I get it, but when people want separate bathrooms, sometimes they want separate bedrooms. I'm like,
Yeah, for the master suite.
are we married? I mean, I don't know. Maybe just get two houses. I
Yeah.
don't know. It could be easier. I can help you with that too.
It is fun.
That is like actually a kind of common one with the older clientele,
Mhm.
and I just always like my own grandparents slept in two queen beds because my grandpa like punched, and I just found that so funny. And now it seems to be like a little bit of a trend from the east that you have like two primaries and sleep separate. I don't know. I guess maybe you could get into it like it's date night or something, but I don't know. It's a strange concept. Um, Other strange things are like people are very, very particular as to where their children's rooms are. If you have
Hmm.
young kids, they like want the primary first and then the kids down a hall. Or
Mhm.
if they have step kids, like they want a two-bedroom guest house. Or if they have twins, the rooms have to, perfectly mirror each
Be the
other.
same.
It's going to
Yeah.
be like World War III. So I don't know. It's the kid demands are probably the funniest. Oh, and people really treat their dogs very nicely. A
Yes.
lot of dog requests.
I love that you brought the dog ones because, working in Silverleaf and you'll see them, walking their dog in the stroller. It's kind of unique. You have to be very pet friendly, and with some of these builds that we do.
We just recently had a client who walks their dog in a stroller and then they hook them to a treadmill when they get home. And I'm like, just walk the dog, maybe.
Yeah, just walk the dog. Oh, Katrina's so funny. I mean, some of the stories, it's funny you bring up some of the unusual requests because even as a builder, I mean, you get to know, our clients pretty intimately and they have some requests. And, I know early in my career, I was doing a project in Phoenix and we built kind of like an office off of the master suite that had a Murphy bed. And we're like, why do you need a Murphy bed in the master that's only, or in the office, it's only accessible through the master? And she said, well, my husband snores, so we kick him out and that's where he gets to sleep at night. So you kind of go through these things and, we're always careful about how we, market this stuff, for privacy of the client. But yeah, it's, people have their own way of living and we just try to do the best to service them.
I will say the dual toilets are here to stay. Two
Yeah.
water
Hmm.
closets. That's a trend I don't see going away
Yeah.
anytime soon.
Yeah. Some of the husbands that like to keep the toilet seat up or whatever,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. How are you using AI? AI has been pretty active. How has it affected you in real estate?
I will tell you, I am probably the least technologically savvy realtor who ever lived. I hire a lot of younger people to do that part for me, if I'm being honest. They're using it minimally. My new phone, which I hate the Apple update, I don't know what's happening. It texts so slow compared to what it used to do. I don't
Hmm.
get it. But it got stuck on some setting where when people call you, they have to say their intention and it texts
Yes.
you. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure the people on the other end are hating this, but this is like efficiency at its finest for me. So
Hmm.
that is my current best use of AI. I know that our designers are using it big time to
Hmm.
take trends that we're seeing in the field. And like if I send a photo, they'll immediately with AI integrate that look into someone's design book, which is really cool. I've actually seen more flaws for my uses than I have successes so far. I think people who are using them for comps, it sucks. It's
Hmm.
terrible. Those of you who are writing listing blurbs from AI, stop. We can all tell. They give you all the fluffy words and
Yep.
nothing about the house whatsoever. It's like a
Yep.
fortune teller who's like, "Oh, you're in your mid 40s with children." Like, no shit. How'd you know?
Yeah.
That's that. I mean, it's going to get a lot better, but I think for our uses, you know, it's limited. It can only pull up sourcing articles, and not everything on the internet is true. So
Right.
it's
Right.
tricky. Like,
Hmm.
I think there's other fields that are adopting it more. I'll also say in this, great revelation of so many fields being taken over by AI, no one will replace the human touch, emotion, strategy of an actual agent in the upper end. Like,
Hmm.
you cannot get it done. It's
Yep.
funny. So many different online buying systems have tried. Maybe for investments, maybe in track homes. You cannot do it on homes that are in a specific location with
Yep.
specific things, conditions. And then it is so hard, even when you have a big sale and a buyer really wants something, to keep people in a deal and keep them happy. I
Hmm.
think this is a message to younger agents. You are the best friend of both the buyer and the buyer's agents and the seller. You want everyone to love everyone and respect everyone and come out holding hands. Like, I think younger agents put up their dukes trying to prove value, and you're
Hmm.
only hurting the situation. Like, everyone has the same goal. It's two humans trying to exchange a home. Help them do it.
Well, I love that you shared that because I think it's no different than us. Like coming to a price or an agreement is only a small part of the deal, right? The next 15, 30 days, 60 days, whatever is to close, you're working with title companies, you're working with qualification, appraisals, inspection reports, right? This is where the heavy lifting takes place, these relationships. It's no different than me as a builder. I, tell clients, yeah, 5% is getting the cheapest bid, right? But 95% is performance. You mentioned quality, right? Getting them to deliver and show up and have a great experience. And so there's a lot that goes into it besides just, hey, Katrina, let's agree 10 million, let's sell it. Now you got to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah. I mean, your field is really hard because from the day a buyer sees something, they start wanting it less. You're just keeping them in the deal. And the
Yeah.
day, I mean, it's really hard. And the day that the seller gets that contract and is excited, they start hating the buyer more and more over time. I mean, it's tricky, um, because all that they're going to get is requests. They're not going to get a thank you letter after the inspection saying you're
Hmm.
wonderful, your home smelled delicious today. We'll take it. I mean, it's not how it plays out.
Yeah.
So for you guys, like, it's the hardest. You have to keep someone in a deal, writing checks over and over and over in the most antiquated system I've ever seen. Cost
Hmm.
plus. There's no way to checks and balance that. Everything moves. Like, if you are 17% versus 18%, you're charging an arbitrary number off of an arbitrary base on no judgment of quality. Like, I actually think the whole build field needs like a complete makeover on how are you getting charged, compensated, and rewarded? Like,
Hmm.
it really, for builders, there should be some metric, especially if it's for spec, of what was the release price? Like,
Hmm.
did you achieve it? Did you guide them not to put purple tile in the bathroom so that they didn't miss out on, you know, half the buyers?
No, I love that you share that because and from our side, not only is it tough to execute in this antiquated system, but it's also tough to explain to the client too. I mean, if you're coming to me, Katrina, and you're interviewing me as well as other builders, I could do the most due diligence possible, put together a really, accurate bid, but you're looking at a piece of paper at the end of the day, right? You're trying to trust me. Okay, you're telling me it's going to be X. And when I finish building it, is it going to be X or is it going to be Y? And then what is the timeline? What does that emotional bank account look like? All these different elements. And so, it's really hard to sell someone on a sticker price and hopefully deliver, year, 2, 3 years down the road.
Just
Now,
1 second.
oh, you're fine. See, and this is the efficiency of Katrina. She's, probably signing a huge deal right now, right in the middle of the podcast. The only one that can
I
be
got it.
interviewed in 10.
This is my least favorite text. 10 minutes behind. I'm sitting here on a podcast. What are you 10 minutes behind for? Do we have a
Yeah.
showing?
Yeah.
I wake up 5 times a night. Like, whoa! What did I
Yeah.
skip? What did I miss?
Yeah. I mean, probably like you. I mean, you like me. I mean, you're obsessed with your calendar. I mean,
Yeah.
knowing exactly where you're at what time of the day.
I mean, it's really bad to get to this point. You pretty much have nothing private in your whole life. Like, my whole team sees all of my emails, all of my Instagram. Sorry for all the
Yeah.
crazy DMs that I get. Um, I you have no idea.
I can only imagine.
I do like that we have like such better systems for everything. Oh, now Kate is calling. Hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we've got very large counter docks flying right now, and that buyer or that seller was the one that said 10 minutes. So I'm like, wait, you're not supposed to be meeting anywhere. So I'm confused. So sorry about that. But exciting comps coming our way. Another 2,000 a footer going
That's
down live
amazing.
as we speak.
Did did you feel that that'd be realistic at some point to see 2,000 a foot?
I didn't think it would happen this quickly, and for it to be two in a row in Arcadia is kind
Yeah,
of
in
shocking.
Arcadia. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Arcadia is 100% the highest price per foot per acre. Like, it's wild. I would
Why
have
is
just
that?
proximity to downtown, proximity to both airports. Arcadia is really where Scottsdale touches Phoenix, touches Paradise Valley. So it's
Hmm.
just prime location. I do really think the Sam Fox effect of the global coming
Hmm.
to
The global
fruition and
ambassador right
doing
there.
well is like,
Hmm.
honestly, it really, really helped
Yeah.
everywhere surrounding. I'm seeing like a little trend west right now, which is interesting. Like you see, there's four quadrants in Paradise Valley, and D, which is the surrounding neighborhoods to Phoenix Country Day, are really
Hmm.
taking off right now. A little bit of that is the movement west, and the other half of that is you have an east facing backyard to Camelback Mountain instead of a west facing. So,
Hmm.
kind of surprised it didn't do better before, but it wasn't in the public school district of choice, and now you're seeing such a resurgence of private school wait lists too. So just a lot of changes with the really the biggest migration we've ever seen in our lifetime of wealth to Arizona. A lot of the changes have been, the draw to the private schools and the draw to the private areas and views. We take for granted in Arizona
Hmm.
how much out of towners appreciate a mountain.
Yeah.
I live with a
True.
north facing yard to Camelback Mountain, and I have fully ficused no view of it because I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and think that seeing trees is like unbelievable. Like you must have really made it if you have a green backyard. And these out of towners really just want to see as much mountain as possible.
Well, you don't realize how much of it, see, growing up out west, like you and I, being Arizona, Utah, Nevada, California, you see mountains, Denver. But you go out west or out east, I'm sorry, and in the Midwest, they don't have a lot of mountains. It's very different.
Totally. Tucson is also like really eco-friendly, so it's all desert landscape, which is
Desert
really
landscape. Yeah.
beautiful in its own
It's
way.
like
Like I
Vegas.
love the topography of Tucson.
Hmm.
But I went to school at University of Miami, and the first day that I went for a jog, I was like, "Oh my God, everyone's so wealthy. They all have so much grass." Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you can't even kill the grass here." Like,
It's so funny how that changes. Well, you mentioned, social media, you have your team on there. How has social media, Instagram, how's that played a role in your growth, your network, and your business?
Instagram's been a huge role, actually. Someone who worked for me once said, you don't need 100,000 followers, you need 10,000 of the right followers, and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the highest end demographic following you locally, when you release something on Instagram, it's more effective than releasing something on MLS. Three
Yeah.
years ago, I would have never, ever even believe that statement. I would have said you're crazy. Like I didn't even have a login to Instagram. Instagram for me grew really organically and really quickly with the adoption of videos. But to be honest, everyone loves seeing really beautiful product, and we're just lucky to have so much of it. Like I am wowed and amazed by what the builders are putting out and what the designers are doing. And I feel like there's this like we're so lucky to be in Arizona. The like just camaraderie of the builders, designers, architects here. Everyone cheers and applauds and really supports everyone else and really pushes everyone up. I wish we could kind of say the same for the realtor. Um, I would like to help champion that, but no, it's like if you, Brad, release a 3,000 a foot, instead of people being jealous, they're going to cheer you on so hard
Hmm.
because you just set the next best comp. Like
Yeah.
it's an amazing, like melting pot to be a part of as wealth moves in and as designers and builders are just pushing the envelope so much farther.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really neat to see that. And I would agree. I think in general, there's a lot of camaraderie here, which is probably unique, between builders, designers, and architects. What keeps you up at night?
Um, if I'm being fair to all of my realtors, if I'm seeing my kids enough, that's a
Hmm.
really tough one for me right now. I'm
Hmm.
so lucky to have achieved the success I have, but I feel like I, with my oldest, have he's 12 and I have 6 years left, 5 years left of him at home. And this year is gone. So 5 years. And that's just, it's awful. I feel like I've given up every waking moment. Like when I had babies, I drove around all day pumping, dropped into the daycare multiple times a day, and stayed up all night feeding them. And that was just
Hmm.
for years. And I really, I gave up a lot of myself to be here, and now the wheel is created, but you can't really enjoy it without being in it. So
Hmm.
it's a conundrum.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. I think work life balance is really hard. It's really hard to achieve. It's easy to talk about, but it's hard to, enact.
I mean, everyone says they like set boundaries in real estate. I'm the first to admit I don't. Like you don't
It's
know when
hard.
a deal is going down, and someone new is flying here for some other reason. Like we get so many people who were robbed or had a fire or an earthquake, or like they're like a panic buyer. Like you forget the human on the other side who just like actually needs you. And
Hmm.
we had a good example this week of just someone taken to the absolute cleaner by a fake buyer. And
Mm.
we're stepping in at a super reduced rate and just doing everything we can to sell them within 30 days because, I mean, they put so much money on the
Oh,
line
heartbreaking.
believing that this person was real. And it's, yeah, really tricky.
Oh, that's tough. Well, Katrina, you've been amazing. You're incredibly talented. Your wealth of information network's just second to none. What do you do for fun?
Uh, write a contract at midnight now. I'm truly laughing because I would honestly say like I love running and working out, and I feel like 3 days in a row I've gotten up for like East Coast like Zooms at 5 a.m. So I feel like I've just given up every inch of myself. But I love
Yeah,
wake surfing. I love doing anything with my kids. I'm the worst skier who ever lived, and I made myself do it this year.
fun.
I was proud of myself for that, even if I was missing so many texts and calls. And I really do receive about one text message every minute throughout
It's
the day.
wild.
So
It's wild.
it's tricky. You can't tune out. But what I always say to like my team is, I signed up for this. You didn't necessarily. So when they have a day off or they have a week off, throw the phone in the ocean. Like
Yeah.
don't look at it. Don't respond. Reset yourself. It was a little bit of a lesson too when I just traveled. Like I came back so raring to go that I moved the ball so hard. I just have to remind myself once a month to like actually
Get
take
away.
a beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's healthy. It's good for sure, Katrina. Well, can't thank you enough, for joining us today. Where can our listeners find you?
Thank you. Instagram. You'll be reaching all of us at once, so careful what you say. Katrina.a.barrett.
And I will say for those listening, go give her a follow. She not only do you show some of the most amazing properties in town, but you also have some fun, whimsical videos every once in a while. You do a great job. You have a little actress in you, so
We're trying to be funny this summer.
yeah,
We get bored of our own videos, so
yeah,
that Adam Sandler one hit pretty well. But
that's a good
this
one.
summer, we're going to try and be a little entertaining, a little goofy. We'll get back to business for high season. It's tricky. If you're representing the highest real estate, $40 million homes, like you have to
Hmm.
be serious. But I am so sick of all the content and all of my own content
Yeah,
specifically. Like, I want to be shocked, wowed, like throw away, these realtors like don't use, sexual things as your way to get
yeah,
attention. Like
right, right,
better ways to capture a market. You are capturing
for
the
sure.
wrong market if that is your tool.
Yeah.
But no, being funny, creative, different, there's I love the creatives. I'm so not them and I love them.
Well, you do a good job. Well, Katrina, thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate you.